I'm here today to talk about bike lights. Now, if you've never been riding at night, you're certainly missing out. It can really bring new life to old trails. Generally speaking, the brighter your lights are, the easier it's going to be. So for this 15 light group test, we've set a 1500 lumen lower limit. The number of lumens a light can pump out is a good way to comparatively gauge whether a light's going to be as powerful or not as powerful as another one. However, there are other things that you need to consider, and these can be just as important as how many lumens a light puts out, like the LED colour, the beam spread and the lens type, and how easy the light is to use. Some lights illuminate a specific area with great detail and power. This is called a spotlight, but is frequently at the sacrifice of broader floodlight coverage. Those lights that flood their beam make it easier to see more of your surroundings. Some lights, however, combine both a spot and a floodlight, and these provide exceptional performance out on the trail. Now, before we delve into this 15 light mega group test, there are a couple more things to consider. Claimed runtimes can differ and are sometimes shorter than actual runtimes, and that's quite an important factor when you're looking to buy a light. The lights on test range from £130 all the way up to a lofty 500. We chose offerings from reputable brands that you can either buy online direct from the manufacturer or from your local bike shop. There are no eBay specials in this test, although it is possible to buy lights with a high output at a lower cost. It's not possible to comment on the safety of these lights, however. Right, without further ado, let's get into the light tests. Starting at the lowest scoring light right the way through to the test winner.
These are good tests. Nice and fruity.
We're kicking this test off with the CatEye Volt 1700 that retails for £179.99. It pumps out a claimed 1,700 lumens and can run for an hour and 50 minutes at this power. It's got an all-in-one form factor. That means that there's no separate battery pack. It mounts to the bars using a small plastic clamp with a worm and gear fastening system that's compatible with both 31.8 and 35mm bars. The light has 5 different modes that are toggled using a single button. There isn't a mode indicator, however, but the button does function as a rudimentary battery life indicator. The twin LED lamp unit pumps out plenty of light, and it actually feels more powerful than its claimed 1700 lumens. That said, the beam is quite focused, which makes it tricky to spot things to the side of where you're riding and around turns. Because of this fairly focused output, we think it will work well as a helmet-mounted light, paired with a broader flood-lit handlebar-mounted unit. The light emitted by the LEDs has a whitey blue hue to it, and this can cause shadows to be more pronounced than a yellower light. All in all, the CatEye Volt 1700 is better suited to flat-out bridleway bashing rather than tight, twisty technical trails. Next up is the KNOG PWR Mountain that retails for £179.99 and pumps out a claimed 2,000 lumens. In max power mode, the light lasted for 2 hours and 50 minutes. KNOG's PWR Mountain is unique because it has a modular design. That means the head unit and the battery can be removed from each other and paired to other different parts in the KNOG range. You can even use the battery pack to power USB devices when it's not plugged into the lamp unit. Even though the light's form factor is modular, it is an all-in-one unit once it's connected. There is no separate battery pack on a cable mounted elsewhere on the bike. The biggest 10,000 milliamp hour battery costs £99. But because of the long runtime, it's unlikely you'll need to purchase a second battery to keep you going out on rides. The bar clamp can be fiddly to attach to the handlebars, and the light can be quite hard to attach to the clamp. However, it is compatible with both 31.8 and 35mm bar diameters. Despite the light's versatility, it does produce a very focused beam pattern. This means that it reduces its effectiveness on tighter and twistier trails, and the beam has particularly sharp cutoffs either side of where it's illuminating. It does have a traffic light style charge indicator, but there's no way of telling which mode you're in. And to select the modes, you have to twist the light unit, which isn't especially easy to do when you're on the move. Because of its beam spread and sometimes difficult to use operation, it is best suited to light bridle way use or some very gentle single track bashing. The Tumble Fall Halo light is one of the cheapest on test at £119.99. It can last for up to an hour and a half at its 2000 lumen claimed max output. The light has 2 buttons on the rear that operate which mode it's in, of which there are 6, but the buttons don't change colour and don't indicate which mode you're actually in. They do, however, turn red when battery juice is running low. The 2000 claimed lumens certainly lived up to expectations, and we were never left wanting more power out on the trail, especially with forward floodlighting. However, the beam pattern is quite round and cut off to the sides is quite sharp, which makes it much harder to ride technical or twisty single tracks. In maximum mode, the light did fall short of its claimed runtime, lasting only 90 minutes out on the trail. However, that amount of burn time isn't prohibitive. The single O-ring used to mount the light to the handlebars is compatible with both 31.8 and 35mm diameter handlebars, but I didn't find that it clamped tight enough to stop light bounce over really rough terrain. If you paired the Tumble Fall Halo with a bar-mounted companion, we think it would excel as a helmet-mounted light, or for someone who's looking to just dabble into night riding. Next up is the impressively expensive Exposure 6-pack MK10 light that retails for £435. It has a claimed 5000 lumen output, and in that max mode we timed it running for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Because of the particularly high output and long run times of this light, it does have a fairly chunky form factor. The light's an all-in-one unit, and the battery's integrated into the light itself. The clamp fits both 31.8 and 35mm bars with a small shim. To create that whopping 5000 lumen output, its 6 LEDs are arranged in a pentagon shape with one central bulb. This creates an especially intense, focused beam of light in front of you, with great forward flooding into the distance. However, side-to-side illumination is pretty limited considering how much power is on tap, and the cutoff between light and dark is really quite severe. There's a single button to operate the light on the rear, and there's an OLED display that gives you runtime and tells you which mode you're in. One of those modes is the Reflex Plus setting. Now this identifies when you're riding and when you're stopped, and dims and increases the light's illumination accordingly. This feature is pretty effective and works well. However, because there's only one single button and a huge number of modes, the light can be difficult to operate if you haven't looked at the manual carefully. The small button on the rear of the light to change modes can be quite hard to find when you're riding over rough terrain. And because of the light's high cost, we were a little disappointed with the amount of spread that it offered. Next up is the Lumicycle Apogee with Enduro battery pack that retails for £355 and 95p. The Apogee has a claimed 4500 lumen maximum output, but at that maximum output it only lasted for 1 hour. However, if you are looking for more runtime, Lumicycle do sell you a bigger battery for £40 more. The 4 Cree LEDs create a noticeably green hue out on the trail. This green hue makes details stand out more than a white or blue hue seen on a lot of other lights. In maximum mode, the Apogee lights up the trail ahead of you impressively. The 19-degree spot lens does provide brilliant side-to-side illumination. However, this is at the sacrifice of some forward range. Lumicycle do offer a 26-degree flood lens as well. Now this would provide increased side-to-side illumination, not that the light needs it. As a package, however, the Apogee doesn't feel particularly refined. The bar clamp's quite hard to use and you have to extend it manually. The battery pack is a little rough around the edges, but the way it attaches to the bike is functional and we didn't find the batteries slipping around on our frames. The single toggle switch on the rear of the head unit does feel quite vulnerable if you were to crash. On top of that, it can be quite hard to use because you need to flick the switch up or down to change modes. The battery life and mode indicator is also a tricky one to decipher with a series of flashing different coloured lights. If you need to get battery information by taking a quick glance when you're out on the trail, the Apogee doesn't provide it simply. Despite the great on-trail illumination, the Apogee's rough around the edges feel doesn't warrant the asking price. The Lupine Wilman R7 retails for a stupendous €495, which is roughly £410. The light has a claimed maximum output of 3,200 lumens, and in max mode it lasted for an hour and 45 minutes in our runtime test. On top of the 3,200 lumen max claimed output, it also has an IP68 water and dustproof rating and can resist drops up to 2 meters. The light's supplied with a single bar mount that's only compatible with 31.8mm bars. However, you can purchase a 35mm mount for €32. It's also supplied with a remote button that's wireless, and it's easy to cycle through the different modes using the button. However, to work out which mode you're in and what the lights mean on the back of the head unit will require you to read the manual quite carefully. The light's thermal throttling, now this is when it reduces in output when the light gets too hot, is quite sensitive, so unless you're riding in the rain or it's really cold at night, it can reduce its output quite quickly. The 4 LEDs in the head unit provide a great amount of forward illumination. This is perfect for straighter, faster tracks, and the cutoff between light and dark is quite gradual. However, the side-to-side beam spread is pretty limited, which makes it not quite as suited to tighter, twistier trails when it's mounted on your handlebar. Because there's no cowl or hood over the lens, when it's mounted on your bars, there is quite a bit of upward light bleed. And if you get over the front of the bike on a climb, you can get dazzled. The light's got a 2-piece form factor with a head unit and a battery pack. And because of the lack of cowl and how focused its beam is, it is best suited to being mounted onto a helmet, companioned with a broader spreading light on the handlebars. Although we reckon you're only likely to do that if your budget is pretty big. The Meteor Storm Pro has an all-in-one form factor and retails for £119.99. It has a claimed maximum output of 2,000 lumens and in our runtime test lasted for 2 hours and 10 minutes. Those 2,000 lumens are accessed when the light's in boost mode. And with the 2 LEDs, one is a spotlight and one is a floodlight. Although the light feels much more powerful than its claimed output, it still has a particularly focused beam, even with the spot mode. This does mean the light's better suited to straighter bridleways and less technical single tracks. The saving grace is that the cutoff of the light's side-to-side illumination isn't particularly harsh, so you can see some of what's going on the peripheries. The LED emits a pretty white light, and there are 24 modes that are operated by 2 buttons on the top of the light. There's also a screen to indicate which mode it's in and how much battery life it has left. Now, because there are so many modes, it can be a bit confusing to use. It's supplied with a wired remote that uses the USB-C charge port and a bar clamp and a helmet mount, all in the package. However, because of the all-in-one form factor, you're unlikely to use the light on your lid, and it's probably better suited to being used on the handlebars. The Gloworm XSV, which stands for excessive, retails for £289. It pumps out a whopping 3,400 lumens that lasted for an hour and 50 minutes during our runtime test. The light has 3 Cree LEDs arranged in a row, and it's possible to customize the optics for the light with the supplied spared lenses. When you customize the optics, you can increase or decrease the amount of spread the light has. We found the light provided enough power to light up the trail ahead like it was daytime. However, the side-to-side spread with the standard optics wasn't amazing. The overall brightness of the light does mitigate this lack of side-to-side spread, and if it was really a problem for you, you could just replace the lenses with the supplied spare ones. Since testing this model, Gloworm has updated it with a new one that they claim is 30% brighter than this one. The light is a 2-piece form factor with a separate battery pack and head unit, and the 7 modes are operated by a button on the back of the head unit or on the remote control that's included. In the box, you get a 31.8mm bar clamp and a helmet mount. A 35mm bar clamp is extra. Although the lack of mode indicator can be a little frustrating, once you've mastered how the light works and which mode it's in, it's easy to use. Hope's R8 Plus retails for £295 and can push out 4,000 claimed lumens. During our runtime test, in maximum mode, the light lasted for an hour and 25 minutes. It has a 2-piece form factor with a separate head unit and battery pack that's strapped to the frame using a Velcro strap. Although it's quite weighty, the Hope R8's party piece is certainly in the way it projects its light. It has a phenomenal amount of spread and range off into the distance, and to top it off, it has great immediate spotlighting right in front of where you're riding. Overall, the light's pretty good with the way it covers the trail ahead, and this makes riding fast or even twisty and technical trails a breeze. There's a single button on the head unit that you use to operate the light to change modes, and it doubles up as a mode indicator and a low battery indicator. The light has 6 modes, 3 of which are accessed with a single push, the other 3 with a longer push of the single button. The battery pack has a traffic light style battery indicator, but this is tricky to read when you're on the move or when the battery pack is mounted to your bike. Supplied with the light, you get a 31.8mm and 35mm compatible bar mount. You also get a helmet mount and a head torch mount. Because of the head unit's heft, we have noticed that over time, the head unit to bar clamp has started to wear. This means over rougher terrain, the head unit can shake around a little bit. Luckily, you can find all the spare parts you need on Hope's website, and they're easy to replace and fairly cheap to buy. Next up, we tested the Motion Seca Enduro with 6-cell battery. This light retails for £349.99 and has a claimed output of 2,500 lumens. In maximum mode, the light lasted for 2 hours and 40 minutes during our runtime test. The Seca Enduro has a 2-piece form factor with a separate head unit and battery pack. The 4 Cree LEDs on the Motion's head unit create fantastic on-trail illumination, putting that claimed 2,500 lumens to great use. The focus spot shines exactly where you want to be looking in front of the bike, while the light's side-to-side flood illumination really makes it easy to go around corners and down twisty trails like it's daytime. That said, the beam doesn't reach particularly far in front of the light. However, this isn't a problem until you reach warp speed on flat-out straight trails. The light's supplied with a bar mount that's compatible with both 31.8 and 35mm bars. There's also a helmet mount and a GoPro style adapter. It has an IP67 dust and waterproof rating, and the single button on the back of the light is easy to use and cycle between modes. Its runtime was longer than claimed, and we found that the on-trail performance was really quite impressive. The Ravenmen PR1600 costs £129.99, and yes, you guessed it, it has a 1600 lumen maximum claimed output. During our runtime test, the light lasted for 1 hour and 35 minutes in its maximum 1600 lumen setting. On max power, the light's 2 Cree LEDs illuminate the trail in front of you impressively, considering its claimed lumen output. However, the beam spread isn't massive, and it can be a limiting factor when trails get really twisty. If you had the budget, you could get over this problem by buying a second light. Now this would give you a 3200 lumen 2-light setup for just under 270 quid. The bar clamp's compatible with both 31.8 and 35mm bars and proved to be pretty stable out on the trail. The light also comes with a wireless remote that has the same number of buttons as the light's single form factor body. The wireless remote uses a Velcro strap and can mount next to your handlebar grip. The LCD screen on the back of the light displays both mode and remaining battery time, and it's a good option to have this information easily readable. Next up is the Nightrider Lumina Dual 1800 that retails for £160 and has a 1800 lumen maximum output. In our runtime test on max setting, the light lasted for 1 hour. The 2 inline LEDs project through a light diffusing lens on the front of the single form factor Lumina. Out on the trail, the Lumina's performance was impressive, and it certainly felt like it put out more light than the 1800 lumen claims. On top of that, the beam spread was really quite wide and was more akin to the pricier options in this test. This is obviously at the trade-off of some focus spotlighting, but we didn't deem this to be a problem because there was a great overall illumination of the trail. The tool-free bar mount is compatible with both 31.8 and 35mm bars. The single button is easy to use and cycles through the 7 modes in a logical way. Although there isn't a particular mode indicator, the next mode or the mode you want is only a few short clicks away. Impressively, the Nightrider lasted 15 minutes longer than its claimed runtime. And although it doesn't look as refined as some, it certainly outperformed its price tag. The Gemini Titan 4000 OLED is a new version of last year's MBUK Lights Group Test winner. The light retails for £349.99 and puts out a whopping claimed 4000 lumens. During our runtime test, it lasted for 2 hours and 25 minutes on maximum setting. Over the outgoing model, the updates include an OLED screen on the back of the head unit that displays both which mode you're in and how much battery time you have left. You also have a newer, more powerful battery in a polycarbonate shell that looks considerably more refined. The light has a 2-part form factor with a separate battery pack and head unit, and interestingly, the head unit's 6 LEDs are all arranged in line that bridge over the top of your stem. Despite the updates to the battery, we did find that runtime was a little down on Gemini's claim. Gemini are also claiming that the Titan now has a 25-degree beam angle. However, out on the trail, this didn't offer a particularly wide spread of light, and we found that the beam's cutoff from side to side was quite abrupt, and its beam was also quite narrow compared to some of the competition. Off into the distance, however, and the light's sideways spread is actually quite impressive. While we think the Titan is still a great light, it does lose its crown, thanks to other brands offering increased performance at slightly lower prices. Lifeline's Pavo Motion 2400 light retails for £149.99. It gives out a maximum claimed 2,400 lumens. It lasted for an impressive 3 hours. The Pavo Motion 2400 has a motion control mode where it detects when you are or are not moving. When you're not moving, it halves its output and then increases the amount of light it puts out as soon as you start riding again. Out on the trail, we had absolutely no problems with the light picking the correct amount of illumination for the sort of riding we were doing. And the lag between it being dim and then back up to full brightness is pretty short. It provides a great amount of flood that's not particularly harshly defined, which means that out on the trail there's a fantastic amount of context and it's possible to see around turns easily. The 7 Cree LEDs pack quite a punch and they project light well to the sides and into the distance. The light has an all-in-one form factor with the battery pack and head unit as one piece. The single button is mounted on top of the light and can cycle between its 7 modes, changing colour depending on which of the modes you're in. At the moment, the bar clamp only works with 31.8mm bars, and this could be a sticking point for quite a few people. That said, it is incredibly stable out on the trail. Although the Pavo Motion isn't feature-laden, the amount of light it puts out beats lights with double the amount of claimed lumen. Lifeline's Pavo Motion was given MBUK's Value Award, thanks to its great performance and relatively low cost. I've just told you about 14 out of the 15 lights in this group test. So here's the moment you've all been waiting for. The Magicshine Monteer 6500 is the winner of this group test. It retails for £225 and puts out a massive claimed 6,500 lumens. In our runtime test, it lasted for 2 hours and 20 minutes in maximum mode. It has a 2-piece form factor with a separate head unit and battery pack that's attached to your frame using Velcro straps. The head unit has 3 inline flood LEDs and 2 spot LEDs beneath them. The light really is astonishingly powerful, and it certainly lives up to its claims of 6,500 lumens. However, that power wouldn't be any good if it wasn't directed in the correct places. Luckily for Magicshine, the Monteer's light is spread all over the trail in front of you. Not only does it have exceptional side-to-side illumination, it also illuminates the trail really far ahead of you. The cutoff between light and dark is so gradual that it's almost imperceptible. On top of the fantastic optics of the beam, the light has a real yellowy hue to it, which really helps reduce the harshness sometimes created by blue or white lights. The light is supplied with a single bar mount that can be used on 35 and 31.8mm handlebars using a shim. The head unit mounts to the clamp using a Garmin-style twist and lock mounting. The mount is off-center, which means that you can mount the head unit directly over the stem in the center of your bars. This is great for saving space on your handlebars for other things like GPSs. It's easy to toggle between the lights modes using its single button on top of the head unit. However, there isn't a mode display function, so it is possible to get lost in the light's mode cycles. There is a basic 4-step battery indicator, but with the amount of runtime on offer in maximum mode, we don't think you're ever going to need to look at it. At just over 200 quid, the light still isn't cheap, but it does offer fantastic performance and power per pound spent. There you have it, 15 lights tested by us to help you decide which one you should buy for this winter's night riding. Let us know in the comments what you think makes your perfect light. Is it its form factor, how much runtime it has, the amount of power it puts out, or how easy it is to use? Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the little bell icon so that you get a notification the next time we upload a new video.